As if there aren't enough hot takes on the internet right now, we need to talk about what's happening in Pisces with astrology, kind of right now and through the next couple of years. Couple of things to remember about Pisces, or maybe not remember, maybe be introduced to if you're new to it. Pisces is about transition. This is one of the reasons that it's associated so highly and so fervently with spiritual practices, is because our spiritual practices and our spiritual gifts, they help us to transition. Also, literally the transition from life to death. That also has to do with Pisces. It's associated with sacrifices, making offerings, which help us to make transitions. And Pisces is a water sign, and it's associated with the rain clouds and the rain cycle, which when the water is picked up, it does have to go through the air and then be transitioned to a place where it will then ground again. So right now with Pisces energy, keeping all of that in mind, Saturn is in Pisces currently, and Neptune is in Pisces as well. They're both finishing up their transits this year. They'll retrograde back into Pisces later on, but they will move into Aries this year, both Neptune and Saturn. Neptune is an 11-year transit in one sign. Saturn is a couple of years. It's 2.5 around that through one sign. So they're finishing up both of their transits in Pisces simultaneously, asking us to be very disciplined and very discerning when it comes to our transitions on a spiritual level. On top of this, the North Node is moving into Pisces January 28th. The North Node has to do with our spiritual purposes that are not really rooted on the earth yet. They might not make any sense. We don't have any real skills to be able to go towards that thing, but we just feel the calling, we feel the purpose. And sometimes what I've found is that people who follow that North Node path and they follow their purpose, usually you're going to get called a little bit crazy. That's a part of the North Node energy, is it doesn't make sense to you and it doesn't really make sense to society either. With all of this transition energy in mind, Saturn making it really serious, Neptune, it rules Pisces, it's been in its home space. They're about to move on into Aries and start something completely different when it comes to spiritual order and spiritual structure. And the North Node is giving us new spiritual purposes of transition and asking us to get kind of uncomfortable when we're working in those skills over the next couple of years. Something to keep in mind. I feel like I've been just talking around the point the entire time. Okay, but let's get to the point. Spiritual transition is not meant to make a lot of sense a lot of the time. Sometimes things are supposed to be chaotic so that something good or something that is supposed to happen can happen in the end. But the transformation, or the way that we get there, the transition of how we actually make it to whatever that destination might be, that the highest spirit so needs it to be and needs us to be on that path, sometimes it looks dark. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense. Okay, look at what's happening in the world right now. Sometimes there's a lot of chaos that uplifts. Sometimes there's something that would happen that we could look at and say, oh, that's really bad, right? Okay. And if you're looking at it and you say, oh, that's really bad, sometimes those really bad things have to happen so that we can see that it's even possible. One of the things I've learned about spiritual transition is that if you're going to make the change, it's got to get flushed out first. If you're going to make the transition, it's got to come to the surface. You got to be able to see it to be able to identify, oh, this has got to go. We got to get this out. We got to get this gone. Okay. I'm not saying that's not a hard thing to experience. I'm not saying that it's not destructive. I'm not even saying what else about that. You're allowed to feel how you feel, and also lots of stuff going on right now. So I'm not saying to disregard your humanity. Please don't do that. Or your human life, your human feelings, and the things that you feel like you need to do. That's true. Here to offer a perspective of sometimes how spiritual transitions really work. Sometimes we have to let that darkness come to the light for it to be shining real bright all up in our faces, so that we can figure out, what's really the fight, what's really the tactic, what's really the strategy, how are we really going to solve the problem, how are we going to root out the issue, make some room, keep the balance, as nature and the witches do. True. And then there's new work to do. Then there's some new work to do. So I just wanted to bring a perspective, okay? However you may feel like you need to hold that, if you feel like you need to hold it. Because if not, listen, I'm not going to be offended. My work is not for everybody. And I'm all right with that. When you really get into it, the work I do has a strong flavor to it. So, not for everybody. That's all right. For me, though, it's my favorite flavor. So I'm going to keep brewing in it. That's how I do. So gratitude, reverence, and love to you. Keep your wits about you in the transitions that are happening on a societal level. And I love you. And I love you. Keep your head up. Keep your spirit strong. And may the work be done in elevation and love. All right, that's it. I'll talk to you in the next video. That's true.